Maddie.
Am I okay to have my cup of Joe here?
Yeah.
Totally casual.
Oh my God.
A cup of Joe with Joe and Sam. Isn't this what we said a long time ago? What we were going to do our podcast?
Yes, Sam, we did.
Joe with Joe and Sam. All right, you guys. Joe and Sam here. Welcome to a little segment that I like to call a cup of Joe with Joe and Sam. I don't know if that'll stick, but Maddie will let us know if we're going to keep that. So, welcome to a cup of Joe with Joe and Sam. I'm here with Joe, Director of Performance Training here at Paramount. I wanted to bring Joe on because I wanted to talk a little bit about really just like bringing to light what it looks like to have performance training and coaching into our business contracts when we go on-site places. What does that look like? And kind of tie it back to the concept of what we've talked about on here previously, the industrial athlete, right? So we're going to make this twofold. Industrial athlete can look for different workforces, right? So if you're sitting at a desk all day, we still want to build the industrial athlete in the respect that we want you to tolerate your work tasks, right? If you're doing computing work throughout the day, we want to avoid head, neck, shoulder pain. We want you to stay strong through your mid-back, that kind of stuff. We want you to stay mobile enough to keep you comfortable. So while people might not think they're an industrial athlete themselves, they are when it comes to how we approach things. We want you to be able to tolerate those work tasks. And then of course, like those heavy manual labor jobs. Like we do a lot of work with people that are in manual labor positions, and our goal is to keep those people strong, healthy, and resilient, right? Reduce work injuries for the company, keep the employee happy and healthy, right? Like those are all the reasons why we do what we do here. So I think what I want to have you do, Joe, is just kind of explain, first of all, like touch on when we get you guys involved in training in our business contracts, like what does it look like for you? What are you doing? What are some of the examples of how we integrate that? And then we can talk about specifics from there.
Cool. Yeah, no, for sure. Going back to something Sam, I think, mentioned is you have to look at the whole workforce and how the role impacts how they physically are, again, getting movement throughout the day. So to just kind of layer it out from there, when I look at putting together a plan for somebody, let's say it is someone that's more manual labor based, well, we're going to look at the repetitive nature of the duties they're doing. Is it lifting? Is it lifting with rotation? Is it a lot of walking? Is it a lot of lifting heavy things repeatedly over and over again? And dedicating the time for how their program is going to look is going to be very, like, let's say, formally laid back to be more about how they're being mobilized throughout the day, taking time to stretch, make a little bit more of that a priority in their life, and then ultimately how they can recover then to go back in and go and do that manual labor task again the next time. So from a loading perspective, someone in that case may not be lifting a lot of heavy things all the time when they're in our program. There will be a time and a place for that, obviously, but they'll be having more of like, can they go back in, recover, and do their task the next day? That's all manual labor based.
So you're, just to give them some context, you're building programs then for their employees, right?
Correct.
Like we're going on site, we're doing an evaluation from the PT perspective saying like, how safe are these people to move, and are there concerns about how they're moving relative to the job that they're doing, right? But then you and I are communicating and saying, what can we do to help these people? And it looks like, how do we build a program for the individual employee typically?
Yeah, exactly. So if you take that scenario, let's say you're an individual staff member at one of our business partners, you go through that evaluation process with one of our therapists like Sam. Sam gets a diagnostic of like what your role is, essentially some of the functions you have in it. And then from a physical nature, like you individually might have some stuff going on that someone of the same role might not be doing. And that's how, from my standpoint, when I'm putting together your plans, I can approximate all that information to like, how can I individualize this more for that employee given where they're at, and then associate it back to the role of like, okay, I know they need to do this, I know they need to do that, but then how can I make it more purposeful for knowing like, hey, we're addressing some of these other things that maybe I wouldn't otherwise know if Sam wasn't there to do that diagnostic.
Yeah, and I think you touched on that a little bit. Like, yes, we're looking at the job that they're doing, but more importantly, we're looking at the individual and how that individual fits the job.
Yep, exactly.
Right? And like how we can modify if we need to, what they're doing in their day-to-day to make it more tolerable for their job, or can we just make them more robust around those tasks?
Correct.
Right? So like a lot of people can say like, oh, you guys come in and build these programs for people. Great. But like I can find something online for them.
Correct.
That might be fine, but that actually is a concern for leading to more risk of injury, right? For them not having the guidance, not doing things that are appropriate for their body.
Correct.
And that's, I think, like the beauty of what we get to do together.
Correct.
Is not only are we just looking at what the job is, but who the individual is and how we can like tie that in, right? So Let's talk about what people might think about when they think about the industrial athlete, those like manual labor jobs. When you're programming, if we talk about just the industry as a whole, when you're looking at those types of workers, what are things that you're thinking about? If they're doing heavy manual labor, what kinds of things are you thinking to program for them, or concerns that you're looking at?
I would say I'll start with concerns first, just because that's the nature of the beast. The concerns you have initially with anybody that's in manual labor is how repeatable they are doing things throughout the day, whether it's heavy lifting or certain movements. So there's a conscious awareness of like, is there potential for overuse injuries? Again, the argument is yes. For those types of positions, there is an argument, because at any given point, you could be good and then you're doing the same thing repeatedly over and over again. And sure as it goes, you end up having back pain, knee pain, elbow pain, whatever it may be. That's the first thing I look at is concern-wise, like what repetitive motions they're doing and how that could be a causative factor for overuse. And then commonly within that spectrum, the fatiguing nature of it being like, how well could I get them to lift loads if I know they're already taxed going into lifting loads? Right? If they're already taxed, is their nervous system capable of doing that repeatability within the same framework again? Or is it something where we can get away with it just based on like how rambunctious, how physically like fit they are already? So those are probably the two common things that I would look at initially. And then outside of that, it is going to be more along the mobility side of things. With repeating nature of things, asymmetries come into the platform as most people know. And typically you have to address the mobility and stability of the joints that they more or less use all the time, and make sure that they're moving competently and can build strength and build autonomy to just keep repeating the same tasks over and over again.
So what I'm hearing you say kind of, we're talking, how do we train efficiencies with heavy lifting, pushing, pulling, pressing, that kind of stuff, right? Like that's what I think that we commonly will touch back and forth on. Is like, we know they have a very physical job. How do we help them meet the physical demands of that job?
Correct.
Whether it be from a strength perspective, a mobility perspective, or a nervous system or an endurance perspective.
Correct.
Right? Like those are three different things that like you can't always find that program for yourself, nor do you know that you're training that oftentimes if you don't have the guidance.
Correct.
Right?
And I think to your point, it's like we're not just looking at it from one perspective. Like we're trying to touch all of it at once because we know how important it is.
Yeah. So how does that change then? We talk about the other end of the spectrum, the people that might not think of themselves as the industrial athlete, right? That desk-bound worker that's doing a lot of computing throughout the day. What does that look like? What kinds of things are you thinking about for them that might be different from the typical manual labor athlete?
Yeah, to hit the differences, it's going to come down to how often they're moving. So if you're someone that's statically sitting for an entire day, like you already know you're not as physically active as what that manual labor is going to be. So my initial thought is like, how can I get you to move a little bit more, work a little bit more on high endurance tasks, because that's going to be the first place that we have to address. At some point, addressing strength a little bit more in proximity is going to be a big fixator on it for sure. But your body is going to be a little bit more pliable for that stuff, whereas someone who is more manual labor based, like, well, their pliability is challenged each and every single day by the manual nature of their position. And that's where the differences lie, especially right away with both of them, is just the difference in activity.
So you're saying kind of the static nature of their job can almost be as dangerous as the repetitive movement, right? But we're looking at it from a different end of the spectrum. Like, how do we get those desk workers understanding that movement, like motion is lotion for them to a certain degree, right? And then like we talk about set and rep schemes, like you're programming more for endurance, right? Like we don't need people to lift a bunch of weight. It's not relative to their job. If they want to do that, that's great for life and for health, right? But like when it comes to programming for them, like how do we integrate it from a behavioral change aspect into their day, right? Like how do we get them standing more often or changing their position more often? And then how do we start supporting like their mid-back with some endurance exercises? Like how do we do light load over a long period of time to keep you from always looking like this at the end of the day? Like I am the worst when it comes to, like, I talked about posture all day long, but posture is not the end game. Like there's more to it than just like you have to be tall all the time, right? But yeah, is it important to recognize that there are some weaknesses associated with that we need to start like pulling people out of? For sure.
For sure.
And like, yeah, we can come in and look at your workstation and I can give you some modifications to that, but why only modify the workstation to the person? Why not modify the person to fit the workstation a little bit too, right? Like that's where the magic comes in. It's like meeting in the middle there instead of forcing one into the other. And that's what I think you guys do really, really well. Right?
It's acknowledging that, like, you know, that this is your job. Like there's only so many things that you're going to be able to change about the role itself. How you fit into the role is where you're more, again, pliable. And that's the unique thing about adding in any sort of like exercise routine that not only is purposeful but has structure to it that you can follow and feel like it's helping you fit those roles better.
Yeah. I mean, I think we sit down here and talk really just to like let people know that there is a way to integrate this piece of what we do into every workforce that there is, right?
Exactly.
And it just looks different, and we're thinking about that stuff, right? So I think a call to action for people today is like, listen to what we talked about today and just think like how this might look. Like, what are the concerns that you see in your employees that you're worried about in your employees, and can we address that, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Like maybe it's just dropping a comment in the comment section here and just saying like, what do you see in this industry? This is where I work, that kind of stuff. Like, give us some insight on how we can best help you and how we can best support you, right? Like, I think that's really the take home, is recognizing how this can be valuable for your company, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, thanks, man. Appreciate you coming. Appreciate you being on. Joe and I will be back at some point, hopefully, for Cup of Joe with Joe and Sam.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys. Have a great day.
You'll have coffee.
Joe, get your shit together. We got
I have my shit together. I always do.